Collaboration. Breaking down silos for collective success. What works well es bueno. Encouraging cross-team collaboration is key to leveraging diverse perspectives and expertise. This collaboration fosters innovation, engagement, and shared ownership, all of which lead to better project outcomes. Collaboration thrives when barriers between teams are broken down, allowing people to share knowledge, skills, and creativity. However, traditional silos often make it difficult for teams to interact effectively, unless you are in an industry that requires silos in order to thrive, such the military or secret projects in the government that are ESCIF sensitive or skunkworks driven. That's where AI can step in to help streamline communication and collaboration across different teams and departments. AI tools enhance collaboration by identifying overlaps in projects, skills, and resources, helping leaders connect the right people at the right time. AI-driven platforms can break down information silos by making data more accessible, enabling cross-functional teams to share insights and work together seamlessly. For example, AI can automate the distribution of key project updates or recommend connections between team members based on their expertise, ensuring that diverse perspectives are brought into the conversation. Additionally, AI can analyze collaboration patterns to identify gaps where teams aren't interacting enough. By monitoring communication flows, AI helps leaders proactively address disconnects between teams, ensuring that cross-team collaboration is consistent and effective. Although I believe AI can take us to a more refined process, let us not forget that our human intuitive knowing, as we know it today, must be a skill we maintain at the forefront of our human collaboration and efforts. Always remembering that we must continue to operate by gut instincts without machine interference, due to cognitive atrophy that can occur if we don't regularly engage our minds with activities that stimulate thinking, memory, and problem solving. Just as physical muscles can weaken when unused, the brain also benefits from regular mental workouts to maintain cognitive function. Real-world experience. Let me take you back to a time before AI was readily accessible. I was what you might call a paper and pen project manager, meticulously making lists of people, roles, and data to connect the dots between responsibilities. I mapped out who was responsible for what and categorized primary and secondary stakeholders. This manual process helped me understand the landscape of the project and pinpoint who needed to be involved at various stages. After those initial mapping stages, I transitioned to Microsoft tools to build out detailed project plans. These plans included role responsibilities, which I found were best defined by having a starting point for people to critique. I would present an initial draft of responsibilities, encouraging team members to provide feedback, discuss, and adjust until we reached an agreement. Once we established clarity on roles and responsibilities, everything else began to flow. With that foundation, processes could be built, timelines could be set, and collaboration would become more seamless. This approach worked well before AI, and with AI now available, it enhances these processes even further. Throughout my career building and leading project management offices, PMO, and project and portfolio management, PPM initiatives, collaboration wasn't just a checkbox, it was essential. By creating spaces where different departments come together, we didn't just share knowledge. We unlocked innovative solutions that a single department couldn't reach alone. In a couple of instances, using the Scaled Agile framework, SAFe, and Azure DevOps, ADO, I helped teams transition from disjointed efforts to a more integrated and transparent workflow. With ADO dashboards, teams could track progress, whether it was defining acceptance criteria or closing out user stories. This real-time feedback motivated teams and strengthened accountability. As a result, we improved on-time project delivery and cultivated a psychologically safe environment where every team member felt connected and empowered. When teams are empowered to collaborate freely with the support of AI-driven insights and tools, they become more engaged, innovative, and committed to the collective mission. By leveraging diverse perspectives and breaking down silos, AI not only enhances collaboration, but also drives better project outcomes. Let me tell you, I've been in this position more times than I can count. As a PMO leader, I've walked into organizations where silos are the norm and projects are floundering because teams refuse to collaborate. It's almost like a broken record at this point. Different departments, marketing, sales, IT, operations, all with their own agendas, their own priorities, and no desire to work together. The result? Missed deadlines, blown budgets, and frustrated teams. Every single time. But I've never been one to shy away from a challenge. I always start with the same question. What are the top 3 most impactful priorities you need me to address? Sometimes I wondered why I even asked. Because let me tell you, there were many moments when the very people who hired me, those who knew I had the experience and the skills to turn things around, cared more about being liked by others than supporting me in removing roadblocks. Roadblocks that only they had the authority and influence to change. It was like they wanted transformation, but weren't willing to take the hard steps necessary to make it happen. And yet they expected me to somehow fix it all. It wasn't just interdepartmental silos either. I've walked into IT departments where even the business units within the same department were working against each other. Every manager seemed more focused on protecting their own turf than driving success for the broader team. It got to the point where I had to stop and think, no wonder the business is promoting shadow IT. When your own internal teams are fighting each other, it's no surprise when the business units decide to bypass IT altogether. They'd rather solve their own problems than navigate the chaos that was being created internally. So, here is my recap for collaboration and breaking down silos. Step 1, building trust through psychological safety. So I did what I've always done. I started by building trust. I invited department heads to workshops, creating a space where they could actually talk to each other instead of pointing fingers. But more importantly, I made sure they felt psychologically safe to share their struggles, ideas, and concerns. Because without that, nothing gets fixed. I've learned that vulnerability is powerful, so I modeled it. I opened up about things I did that went wrong in the past, laying it all out there. I wanted them to see that it's okay to mess up, that failing doesn't mean you're done, it means you're learning. Slowly, they began to share their own stories. This was the first step in breaking down those silos, getting people to see that they're all in this together. Step 2, aligning with a unified vision. But trust alone wasn't going to cut it. I needed to get these teams aligned on a shared vision. So, I called the department heads together and asked them to look beyond their own little kingdoms and think about what we were really trying to achieve as a company. That's when the hard questions started. How does what you're doing contribute to the bigger picture? It wasn't easy. Some people dug their heels in, still trying to prioritize their own metrics. But I kept pushing for that unified vision, improving the customer experience. Once we had that locked in, it became easier to shift the mindset from my department to our success. Step 3, creating cross-functional teams. With that vision in place, I did what I always do. I built cross-functional teams. I paired people from different departments to work on key projects, making sure that they didn't just sit in their corners, but actually collaborated. And I didn't stop there. I set up regular touch points, made sure they had the autonomy to make decisions, and empowered them to solve problems together without needing endless approvals. But here's the kicker. Even though the teams were working well together, I still faced resistance from the top. The people who had hired me often got in the way, more concerned about keeping their relationships intact than making the hard decisions. It was interesting to see how people at the top simply refused to adapt and truly lead. I could see the potential in these teams, but without the full backing of leadership to clear the roadblocks, we were constantly hitting walls. I couldn't remove every barrier on my own. There were moments when I seriously wondered if they even wanted real change or just wanted to keep things looking good on paper. Step 4, transparent communication and technology integration. Still, I pushed forward. I knew transparency was key to breaking down these walls. I implemented project management tools to give everyone visibility into what was happening across the departments. No more hidden information or working in the dark. Everyone saw the same data, the same progress reports. We could all see the bottlenecks, and sometimes I had to point out to leadership exactly where the bottlenecks were. But even when the teams were doing their best and we had systems in place to track everything, there were still moments when I needed leadership to step up and remove a roadblock, and they didn't. When they were not being condescending, they nodded and smiled in meetings and were more focused on being liked by their peers than actually supporting the work that needed to be done. It was a frustrating dance, but I kept advocating for the teams and for the bigger picture. Step 5. Celebrating wins and fostering a culture of collaboration. Despite the obstacles, we started seeing wins. The cross-functional teams were delivering, and I made sure we celebrated those successes because I knew that positive reinforcement was crucial. I would call out team members in meetings if they were comfortable with that, send shout-outs, and highlight team achievements whenever I could. I saw the culture start to shift. The teams were more engaged, more collaborative, and more driven to succeed together. But still, I couldn't help but feel like we could have achieved so much more if leadership had fully embraced the process. They had hired me to break down the silos, but sometimes I wondered if they just wanted me to shuffle things around enough to make it look good on the surface. In retrospect, I realized I'd come in as a storm, ready to get things done and remove the debris, instead of considering coming in as a gentle breeze. What doesn't work so well? No bueno. When collaboration is discouraged, silos form, causing duplicated efforts, inefficiency, and stifled innovation. I've seen organizations where departments operated in isolation, causing confusion and missed opportunities. It was like Pink's "What About Us?" When collaboration is cut off, so is the flow of innovation. In these environments, teams often duplicate work, mismanage resources, and experience communication breakdowns, which lead to frustration and lower morale. In other cases, I have witnessed situations where leaders were more concerned with personal relationships or preserving their image than clearing the necessary roadblocks. It was like, "Y'all gonna make me lose my mind," by DMX playing on repeat in my head, a reflection of the frustration and chaos that ensues when leadership isn't willing to step up. But when collaboration works, when the teams finally break down those silos and start working together, it's like a breath you've been holding in for too long. It feels like the energy we all throw off is inviting you to be there. You want the team to succeed, and you want to sing along to Good Energy by Young Wylan. Music has always been part of how I survive and thrive in these environments. Just like Whitney Houston sang, "It's not right, but it's okay. We'll make it anyway." The words and power of music have spoken to my soul during many toxic workplaces. They remind me that even when the leadership isn't stepping up, we can still push through and succeed. Much like Pink's call for inclusion in the way she shows up for her touring team of amazingly diverse and talented beings that are a symbolic display of unity. To her song, "Raise Your Glass," the workplace thrives when collaboration is prioritized. Breaking down silos and fostering cross-team collaboration are crucial for innovation, growth, and collective success. If we want to drive real progress, we must create environments where all voices are heard and every team member feels empowered to contribute to the collective mission. Only then can we truly raise our glass to success. This concludes Chapter 37. Please proceed to Chapter 38. Manage change effectively, leveraging the ADKAR model for sustainable success.